There's no doubt that the life of Conor McGregor has been a wild one. Whether it's talking crap to knocking out his opponents or starting a street brawl, the former UFC lightweight and featherweight champion is a polarizing figure. You know what else is polarizing? You not hitting the like button. Seriously, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be informed about our content, then subscribe to our channel. On February 17th, 2007, the MMA world was introduced to notorious Conor McGregor. At that time, the future UFC champion was just 18 years old. However, McGregor had the skills to become a guaranteed world champion. The young Irishman's amateur fight was a major success as McGregor got a TKO in the first round over Kieran Campbell. I bet you're wondering, how insane was Conor McGregor's training before his first fight? Well, McGregor's story starts like many MMA fighters as the former two-division champion got into boxing at the age of 12. The Ireland native grew up in a rough neighborhood, so he was bullied when he was a young boy. Naturally, the fighter wanted to defend himself and sought out boxing to brush up on his skills. McGregor didn't think about winning championships and leading a lavish lifestyle. He just wanted to make sure he got home safely after school. Training at the Crumlin Boxing Club under former boxer Phil Sutcliffe, McGregor worked hard and won junior championships within months of training. From there, McGregor's desire to be the best grew. The kid that grew up in the rough neighborhood of Dublin, Ireland no longer had problems snapping bullies in half if he needed to, but McGregor's hunger to be the best required him to leave the Crumlin Boxing Club. Soon after, McGregor met his longtime coach John Kavanagh. The future MMA star came in experienced thanks to his numerous titles from boxing, though McGregor was still rough around the edges. Kavanagh had to set the little showman straight after McGregor beat the snot out of two top-notch fighters in a sparring session. Once Kavanagh got the Dublin native under control, McGregor's obsession with fighting was his greatest strength as he trained day and night. While regular kids would eat cereal and cartoons in the morning, McGregor would practice how to beat the next opponent. All of that training paid off in his first amateur fight, and McGregor's star continued to rise before he won his first MMA title, the Cage Warriors Featherweight Championship. McGregor went through a tear from that moment, beating decorated fighters such as Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier before meeting Chad Mendes for the UFC interim featherweight title at UFC 189. Arguably the biggest fight of his career thus far, McGregor himself stated that he was 172, which is a far cry for a featherweight clash. McGregor needed to lose nearly 30 pounds in 8 days. That's insane, right? Extreme weight cutting is often dangerous, with fighters such as Kelvin Gastelum or Henry Cejudo rushed off to the hospital because of their big weight loss, or in the unfortunate case of Leandro Soze, death. McGregor explained to Muscle & Fitness in 2015 that his training for the UFC 189 fight revolved around his focus on body, mind, and breath. Yoga was a big part of his regimen as McGregor practiced every day. For cardio, pool work, jiu-jitsu rounds, pad work, jump rope, core work, dead hanging from objects were necessary components. To build strength and balance, McGregor did free weight exercises such as single-leg barbell deadlifts. Despite having a different opponent, McGregor put in the work and propelled his career forward as he beat Mendes by TKO in the first round to capture the interim featherweight title. A short time later, McGregor continued his rise through the ranks in the division thanks to beating veteran Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. Jose Aldo, the man who decimated the 145-pound division by scoring dominant wins over Frankie Edgar, Chan Sung Jung, and Kenny Florian, was ended in the first round like he was some amateur. However, there was no rest for Notorious, and he aimed for the UFC lightweight title. Originally, McGregor was set to lock horns with then-title holder Rafael Dos Anjos at UFC 196. Dos Anjos broke his foot, and then, arguably one of the best MMA bouts came to fruition. Nate Diaz called out McGregor in true Diaz fashion, in a profanity-laced tirade that got the world's attention. Soon after, the fight was made, and the highly anticipated bout did not disappoint once the official bell rang. However, Diaz shocked the world by being the first man to beat the former two-division champion in the UFC. Leading up to the fight, McGregor admitted that his preparation for the bout was all out of whack. Once the Dos Anjos fight was thrown out, McGregor overtrained for Diaz, working out at the gym for nearly 8 hours and mismanaged his weight. His body went into shock. Of course, a rematch was set up between the two top UFC stars, and McGregor took a different approach for his rematch against Diaz. First, McGregor switched up gyms and based himself in Las Vegas before his rematch at UFC 202. The idea behind this was that McGregor should get accustomed to the dry climate and the time difference. Also, instead of training throughout the night, McGregor based his workouts following 1 p.m., and his training conditions shadowed a 5-round fight. In detail, McGregor's routine consisted of back rolls, seated butterflies, and lying leg stretch. Exercises like these helped warm up the fighter for an intense workout ahead. Then, the former UFC light heavyweight champion does a duck, horse, lizard, and ostrich walk. As weird as these movements sound, they actually help decrease knee pain, develop hip and groin strength, improve hip mobility, and increase posture chain flexibility. The new training regimen made a big difference as McGregor avenged his loss to Diaz at UFC 202 in another amazing fight. Perhaps someday, the long trash talking between the fighters will turn into a third bout. Following that fight, it didn't take long for the Irishman to capture the UFC lightweight title thanks to another incredible TKO to veteran Eddie Alvarez. The dual champion ventured outside of MMA and went back to the roots of his earlier career, boxing, targeting retired and undefeated fighter Floyd Mayweather Jr. After a bunch of trash talking between the two men, the fight was officially confirmed on June 14, 2017. Surprisingly, Conor's training regimen wasn't too much different than from his MMA bouts. Owen Roddy, McGregor's coach, revealed that the plan was for him to keep standing and knock the opponent out. In terms of diet, nutritionist George Lockhart stated that he ate 9 times a day with a 4,000-calorie diet due to the energy he expensed each day. Conor's training helped him last 10 rounds with the undefeated fighter before losing via TKO. The bout was reminiscent of his MMA fights. Two division champions came together for the kill in the early rounds. However, Mayweather's stamina and boxing skills were too much for the Irishman. Let's be real though, both men were winners here as this was a business fight, not something serious that could lead to a full-time boxing career for McGregor. Due to his inactivity, McGregor was stripped of the lightweight belt. Khabib Nurmagomedov was the champion that Notorious had to take down. We all know how this heated rivalry built up and ended, with McGregor losing by submission at UFC 229. Following the loss, McGregor took a break from the sport though his training never stopped. Through various pictures on social media, it was noticeable that McGregor gained major muscle mass. I know what you're thinking, what's the color of my shorts today? Okay, maybe you're actually thinking, how did Conor McGregor get so big? The fighter's muscle mass levels are calculated, with his carb intake depending on the muscle mass levels. McGregor's diet consists of water, nuts, beef, chicken, greens, and veggies, and these carb intakes were often dependent on the time of the fight. His training regimen remained intense as McGregor heavily focused on strength, cardio, and conditioning. Conor is a strong voice of the Fighter Anaerobic System of Training, FAST, which includes both high-intensity aerobic training and perpetual endurance exercises. Going off his bout against Donald Cerrone, McGregor didn't lose a beat, and though he did lose to Dustin Poitier in the rematch, the Conor of old was front and center in the first round as the Irishman did have Diamond beat until he was dominated in the second round. Even though McGregor isn't a fan of dieting, there's no denying his dedication and love for his sport. Whether you love him or you hate him, McGregor will always be remembered as one of the best to step into the octagon.